The Wi-Fi's funky.
Looks like it's working.
Hi everyone. Here's that. You look. How do you look shorter than me?
Because
You need a pillow.
when I'm heavier than you, and it pushes your side
You're
of
right.
the mattress up.
Oh, okay. Low network connection. Okay.
Connection available.
If that happens another time, maybe another 2 times, let's go downstairs.
Okay.
Okay. So hi everyone.
I'm looking back and forth at the two cameras.
Yeah, hi Josh's friends and family. Hi Larissa. We'll wait for a few seconds, 20 seconds or so for people to hop on. So we have a personal share, and then we have some
The
tips.
title
Yes.
of the thing.
Yep. Well, the title of the thing, if you're one of my friends, I actually put the entire quote. If you're on Josh's page, he only gave a part of the quote, but basically it is something that Josh over here actually shared with me not so long ago, that you tell this to people who you've interviewed, correct?
Yeah, mainly I think
In the
it's
industry.
happening a lot, with younger people coming into the industry. I'm in marketing and advertising. What's up, Jason?
Hey, Jason.
And we've probably
Hi, Tasha.
probably all read about it in, various news stories and stuff about the younger generation really wanting. What's up, Luis? Wanting to get ahead quickly. They've come out of school. They feel like they've got skills. They feel like they're on a path. And one of the things that when I'm in review situations or even interviewing, one of the things I tell them is like, look, you need to give yourself the time to learn the rules of this industry so that you can break them, not so that you have to follow them, but so that you can learn the parts that are working for you and the parts that aren't working for you. But you need to establish a certain amount of knowledge and expertise and credibility before you're actually able to,
Hi, Melina.
excuse me for the language, fuck with the form, right?
Yeah.
If you're just coming out the gate and thinking you're going to reinvent something, how can you reinvent something that you don't even know what it is that you're reinventing?
Right.
So-
And that probably does happen. I mean, again, it's not like it never happens or that it won't ever work, but I agree with Josh. And actually when Josh shared this with me many months back, and I was just joking with him as we were getting the tripod set up, I was joking with him saying, it's kind of weird, like, or kind of interesting that you and I, in certain ways, or in certain sort of themes or categories, like we think really similarly. So when you told me that, I probably didn't say it out loud, but I was thinking to myself, wow, that's so cool, because that's what I do in my life, in my professional life, and definitely the way that I share with clients on how to really, on how to step outside the box, basically.
Yeah.
So
in order to step outside the box, you have to define what's the box.
First.
What am I leaving?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Josh, we attribute this quote to Josh, and this live stream to both of us because, hey Diego, honestly, just 15 minutes before we started this live stream, I was in a completely different sort of mode. We were talking about very serious things, which we'll share about in a second. And this is something that we want to impart as well, meaning like how quickly, speaking of breaking the rules, like how quickly things can change inside of your creative being, inside of my creative being, when you say that that's what's going to happen. Do you know what I mean? And we'll tell you more about that. Love you, Diego. I miss you. We need to go to dinner soon. We'll tell you more about this personal share in a little bit. But we do have 3 ideas for you on how to do exactly this. In other words, how to break the rules, break the norms, go outside of what maybe feels comfortable so that you can truly, be, what's the word? Innovating, feeling creative,
feeling like you're
purposeful.
In control of your creative destiny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to joke with Michelle, and actually as we were prepping for this, I was thinking about how in my head I was thinking how you like to break the rules, but I actually had to correct myself. It's not that you like to break rules just to break them. It's that you don't like to follow them.
Right.
So
and normally you give me a lot. Normally he's much more. He's looking really serious right now. But normally, when I'm in the process of breaking a rule, I don't know who, like wherever, could be anywhere, here in the house or at an airport or whatever, any place, right? Any institution that is telling Michelle Gelati Mandel that things can only be this way. I'm like, no, I'll figure it out. Hold on. And normally, what do? Normally, if Josh, Nolan, and I are together, I look at Josh and Nolan and I'm like, hold on, you guys stay right here. I'll go fix this, right? Or I'll go figure this out. Which normally means I ask a certain question. Basically, it's a lot of question asking, which we didn't. That's actually a good idea, which we didn't think about, is ask a hell of a lot of questions. That's our first tip. Ask a lot of questions. Like, get curious about A, why that rule exists, and then B, be inquisitive, be way more curious, and ask that institution, or that industry or whatever, like, does this actually apply to me? And we can get pretty soulful and pretty deep and pretty philosophical, because a lot of times it doesn't have to, hola Melanie, it doesn't get to apply to you. Like, and that's how when you joke with me about it, I genuinely, and I don't know if I was like this I don't think I was like this as a little girl. I started being like this more in my teens, but where I genuinely believe that rules don't apply to me.
Well, I think, that's almost step 2, is when you've identified a rule and then you rebel against it. But I think the first step is I think rules is like a little bit of a head fake. I think it's more norms, right? What we're looking at is, what we're saying is that you need to learn what the norms are in a situation, not so that you have to follow them, but just so you understand, like, well,
hi Maria. It's
like, okay, I get why this norm exists because it helps to facilitate the situation.
Right.
So that one I'm okay with. This other one over here seems like it exists just because it makes somebody's life easier. And I'm not so sure that I want to follow that. So it's being very conscious of what are the norms that are in this situation. Yeah. And then once you've identified the ones that are actually there for a good reason, then you can kind of slough off the ones where you're like, oh, well, that's just there because some authority figure wants it to be there, or that's just there because it makes that person's life easier, but it doesn't make my life easier.
Correct.
Yeah. And that's when you need to start to have what you have in spades, is that gumption to say, well, I'm not going to do that,
or I don't buy it. Let me get curious. So let's go through our ideas for you guys. Hey Alberto
and Bill.
Hey Michelle. We are talking about essentially breaking rules, and we're about to give some ideas around how to do this in industry. But really,
the title's Learning the Rules to Break the Rules.
Right, Michelle. So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. So the first idea that we have, we already said, is, and basically you just kind of riffed on it some more, and that is like, let's get curious, let's ask more questions, and then another one was looking at different industries. Like, I do this in my professional life all the time. I do this in my writing, I do this in my coaching and consulting. I'm constantly looking at other industries to share with me. In other words, to inspire me. I guess I don't love that word, but basically to share with me, to motivate me, to...
How about enable you?
Enable me to break the rules. Or in other words, Michelle says, oh, I break the rules all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Who is that guy that's with you? This is my husband, Josh. Meet Michelle. Michelle, meet Josh. So yes, look to different industries.
Yeah, and the reason why you do that is because once you've kind of learned how a particular area works, like for me, it's marketing and advertising. Once you kind of learn the norms of that industry, if you stay there, it's very hard to be innovative. You need to, like Michelle was saying, sometimes you need to look towards, well, what have people done in this other industry over here? And where there's a great book that I bring up with Michelle. She's probably tired of hearing about it, but called Where Good Ideas Come From by a guy named Stephen Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the ideas he talks about in there is this idea of exaptation, which is exactly what you're talking about, is outside of the area that you're working in, going far afield to learn things, because there might be things that are applicable to your industry or the innovation that you want to make or the new idea that you want to bring in there that just wouldn't happen if you stayed in your lane.
Right.
So that's really what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And challenging yourself, like, and I'm honestly saying this to myself right now, where I am constantly looking at a couple of different industries. Like, I think of as a consultant, as a success coach, and a brand consultant, and again as a writer. Really, I'm constantly looking at the fashion industry. I'm constantly looking at for how the ways that they express, right? The ways that they communicate information, the ways that they empower their tribes, inspire people, motivate people to act on something. The culinary industry. And right now, as I'm sharing this with you guys, I'm thinking to myself, okay, Michelle, you're constantly looking at those industries, and they've done great for me. But I can challenge myself right now in this moment as I'm doing this live stream with you and say, okay, it's time to look at other industries.
Right.
I have a client, Sinead, who's the model who talks tech, and I think of her because I'm like, ooh, okay, for some reason, I've been like afraid to look at the tech industry, probably because I'm like a creative type, right? I'm super high tech, like I'm very comfortable and friendly with technology, and I love it, and I use it all the time. But that would be something that I could probably look to venture out, like get outside of my own norms of the industries I normally look to for guidance, if you will, or for some color. And maybe look at the tech industry. Like how are they, empowering, educating, entertaining, inspiring their people, like their readers, their people. And then you had an idea for how to, what was it? How to break the rules, in other words.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about it. I think it's just, you have to sit down and figure out. It's almost like in thirds. What are the norms or rules that exist because they actually help make my business better? Mm-hmm. What are the ones that are there because they've just been the way things have always worked? Yeah. And what are the ones that are there because people are just unwilling to change, and maybe they need to be tossed out? And then once you've kind of consciously identified those three lanes, then you can kind of go, okay, the norms that exist because they help, I'm going to let those stay. Those are the foundation. And then after that, it's kind of the other stuff that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Actually, another example, I'm not sure why it came up, but when you were talking about fashion and technology, I don't know if you guys saw, it was probably like 6 or 8 months ago now. Kanye West, he has this fashion line called Yeezy that started off with shoes and is now clothes. Rather than doing kind of the traditional thing of a runway launch or putting together a catalog, they actually kind of surreptitiously started doing photographs of Kim in the clothing on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And so it just seemed like it was kind of like paparazzi shots of Kim, but really what they were doing over time was essentially building out that body of photography of the fashion launch that then they later reassembled into a new form. So it's that kind of stuff. It's looking at what you can glean and pull from other areas, like you said, what's a different way that you can use technology. Yeah. But ultimately it's about, I think, the thing that we're talking about is what's there because it works, and what's there for probably the other kind of bullshit reasons that you would want to overcome. Yeah.
And I was trying to get comfortable. I'm still not super comfortable, but maybe I'll do this.
You're trying to get taller than me again.
There we go. Yeah, this always feels better. Yes. And before I share the other idea that I had, something that just came to mind, which is maybe coming to mind. I so feel like when something comes to mind to you or to me, meaning to anyone, like when it feels like it wasn't overthought and it just sort of drops in, it's the thing that you have to share the most. Like it's something that's sort of universal or like for the collective good. And that is that all of these ideas that we're sharing, I want to sort of out us or just say that so many of these we've probably heard in a way, maybe not in the exact words or whatever, or probably, maybe pretty close. But here's the thing that I'll step into, I don't know, Michelle mode or coach mode or whatever, is that like, but are we actually doing those things? You know, we're such consumers of content, and we rarely-ish, I'll call myself out, you know, I know that I do that in certain ways, where it's like you consume certain content and then you're not the cheerleader of it. In other words, or you're not the, you don't use the content, you don't use the idea. So I just wanted to say that, like, even if you've heard something similar before and you're like, oh yeah, I know that, right? And you turn off the live stream, or you sort of move on with your day. Hi, Etty. That, what if this is just a cool challenge to say, but are you actually doing that? Are you actually looking to other industries before you write the blog post, or before you do that next ad? I know we have a lot of advertising people that we're friends with. The writing of something, the expression, right? Because it's really about communication. Life is communication. Communication is life. So are we really doing it? And then the next idea, speaking of communication, is, how do we break the rules and how do we innovate? One thing that I was sharing with Josh before we got on is, really stopping long enough to, speaking of challenging ourselves, to challenge ourselves to express our ideas in all the different forms that there are to do that, right? So like in words, in pictures, in all forms, to really stop and pause and ask ourselves, like, how are we sort of on this sort of people mover of, of saying things the way that our industry says it, right? So I'll share this example. When I'm writing something, hi Claudia, when I'm writing something and it's something very sort of personal development-esque, right? So it's something within my industry, and I'm writing and it's unique to me, meaning there's an idea that I know is unique, and and then I get to this part in the share and I realize, oh, I'm about to use that word that we all use. Oh, I'm about to
the norms.
The norms. And I'm in this practice now where I stop and I ask myself, do I actually want to use this word? What is actually more, like, let's use the filter of me. Like, what is it that I'm actually trying to say? And doing the same with visuals, doing the same with all the different ways that we're able to express, like really pushing ourselves to say what it is that our understanding, that our insight, like really trusting and believing that our insight and our ability to really, again, here's that word again, to inspire, that I don't love, but to inspire people, to motivate people, that we actually have that specific word that will truly support someone to think differently or to open their minds in a new way. So use communication, essentially, be more precise with our communication.
And conscious. Yeah.
And precise and elegant and whatever words you want to use. Another idea we had was what? Oh, that was it.
Yeah.
And then there was this. Okay. So, wow, this might be our shortest live stream yet. I don't know how long.
There's still time.
I know. And then the personal share, which is still a break the rules, break the norms kind of thing. How do you innovate in your life? Or I should say, we started with how do you innovate sort of professionally. But you also, we're constantly innovating. We're constantly doing doing the opposite, or hopefully doing different than what is normally done in like human industry or like in human society. And what I mean by that is, I shared at the beginning of the live stream that just minutes before this hopping on this live stream and saying, hey, let's create, let's talk about this thing that we both really care about. We were in a totally different space. In other words, earlier, just a couple hours ago, I had a doctor's appointment that was stressful, and I have to get more testing, and there was just, if I'm honest, there was worry and
heaviness.
There was heaviness, and so I'm going to get an MRI next week on this internal part of my body, and Josh and I were having like a real moment, right, as a couple, talking about this doctor's appointment that I just had. And your mom's watching. Hi, Judy. And so, I could have done what is normally, can I actually have that piece of paper?
Yeah.
I could have done what is normally done. In other words, you know, human industry or our human sort of psychology wants to keep ourselves safe, right? When we hear news that we don't like, when we feel worried, when we feel scared, it's almost like we want to continue to feel worried and scared. We want to constrict because we're trying to keep ourselves safe, right? And I had this moment of realizing that that's what was happening, right? Because I was worried. And in that moment, I said to Josh, or not in that, after the couple hours after the appointment, I said to you, essentially like, let's create, let's, do you want to talk about this? Hi, Carrie. Do you want to talk about this thing that like, you told me a few months ago? Like I was so inspired by that, and let's create together. Let's change, in other words, let's change the internal environment that I had just allowed into my life, through this appointment. And let's do something different. Let's shake things up. Let's shake things up internally. Let's, instead of sitting and being here, meeting all night, let's go out on a date night. Let's actually let's not constrict in the worry. Let's expand. And you and I talked about this. For those of you who have been to the Greater Good Party, we've talked about this. We talked about this at the Greater Good Party, and I think in another live stream, but some of you may not have caught this, where when you were in between work, it was like 8.5 months or whatever, and we shared with everyone how it is sort of human, like knee-jerk reaction to, there's this sort of, an uncomfortable moment in time. You want to close down. But what if, you guys, what if we buck the system? What if we buck our own system, our own nervous system, our own norms, and we get the hell out of our minds, that we say, I was in worry an hour or so ago, but let's go out, let's go have fun, let's listen to music, let's get on and share, from our creative perspectives. And so I can't tell you how, and I know that for those of you who have followed me for a while or who listen to my live streams or who read what I write, this is something that has completely changed my life. And I know you've watched it sort of unfold. It's like, I'm very conscious and aware of what is going on in here and how I can change it out here in the world, continuing to create what I love to create, continuing to love the people, that I love, continuing to commit to life, even during the times, you guys, and I know I've shared a lot about loss, on here as well, even during the times of tragic loss or the times like today, which we're trying as well, just continuing to push your creative life forward, and be a life force and essentially choose your life source, which is essentially your creative abilities, Do you have anything to share about that? About just bucking the human trend of wanting to constrict,
No, I just think it's, it's a very natural response to want to protect yourself physically and emotionally and psychologically, and with good reason. So sometimes you need to do that, but it doesn't have to be your only state.
Yeah. Well, and something that you and I talked about, and we can end on this, and then we can go do our date night. But when you were in between work and we were talking about this openly at the Greater Good Party, we said yes, that it felt like we were very conscious of the fact that it was very sort of natural and normal to like constrict. But the very moment that you and I made the conscious decision to, no, let's expand, let's continue to create together, emotionally, spiritually, creatively, with the how good's this I almost got tongue tied. How good's this podcast, with our live streams together, with other projects, business projects we have together. Let's continue to create, because that's our engine. And that is going to be the engine and the positivity and the optimism that is going to give us the outcome that we want. The work that you wanted, the work that I wanted, the romantic relationship that we want is there for us when we keep creating it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that's the final idea for how to really break the norms or break outside of human industry or any industry, is to truly continue to be that creative force that we all are. You know, when people talk about like, oh, but you're really creative to someone, right? Or, oh, but she's really creative or he's really creative. We are all creative. Like, we all get to create. It might not look the same way, right? Some creativity is zany and kind of a little crazy and fun. Other creativity is super like strategic and smart and intellectual. Like, it's all different, and it's all great.
Planning an awesome trip is being creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's value to all of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the perfect place to end, is that know that the ideas that you have, the words that you want, that are coming out of your mouth, the ideas that you have, the ways that you want to change the world, meaning the industry, your family, your community, your neighborhood, whatever it is, that it is of value. You know, the ideas that you have are of value. The wisdom that you hold is of value. The voice that you have, hopefully louder and louder, you know, meaning like with more and more value out into the world, it is of true value. So keep sharing it, and yeah, we can't wait to see you guys on another live stream.
Another live stream or next Greater Good Party.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next Greater Good Party in LA. We believe, well, we have someone who has reached out to us who wants to host it. So we will see if there's some space for additional people in that one. And that's maybe going to happen at the end of September, early October. The How Good's This podcast is continuing. And then I am hosting on September 29th, I'm hosting an immersion day here at our home that's all about helping specifically women, a small intimate group of women, around how to create an experience. In other words, how to create your first event or your next event, but really have it be experiential. You know, have it be everything that we're talking about. Like, how do we look to other industries? Like, how do we create this sort of breakout event for your brand?
Do you have slots left for that?
We have slots. Yep, I have a few slots. Again, it's intimate, so there's like 4 or so places. But if any of you ladies want to get more information, just let me know. You can find out. I think the last couple latest vlogs have some of that information. The event or the experience, which it will be an experience here at the house, is called the Ecstatic Experience Immersion Day. So you can go to my website, read it. Or you can just shoot me a message here on Facebook. So now going to
I'll be kicked out of the house that day.
You and Nolan, you can come for cocktails at like 5:30.
Okay, cool. Done.
So yes, back to regularly scheduled programming, which is our date night. We're gonna go shake things up.
Break the rules.
Yes, and we'll catch you later. Enjoy your life, everyone. Bye.